Well, here we are, another version of Leaf Talk, one that finds the Leafs, this version, more good news than bad news, Aaron.
Oh, definitely. The other good news is they actually have until Wednesday before they have to play again, which gives them a little more time to heal up and get through all the little stuff that they need to.
Yeah, they've gone from a position of having games in hand to now being the opposite. So they've had a busier schedule than their opposition. I believe both Tampa and Florida had played more games a week ago, maybe even as little as a week ago. And now the Leafs are having played more games. But they have played one more game, but have 3 points ahead of both those teams. I don't know. I guess the first question, that I'd like answered is the one that you asked, or the one that you led us to. So that was it. The Leafs have distanced themselves by a point. Mathematically, I'm saying mathematically.
Oh, for sure. And taking 5 out of 6 points when you're on a road trip, in particular against the Sharks, the Ducks, and the Kings, in what used to be the Maple Leafs Golgotha out on the West Coast, is definitely something to at least dust your shoulders off about. In past road trips, that has been a make or break trip for them this late in the season. So it's gratifying to see that they haven't fallen into the same pitfalls, at least this time around.
The math is on their side now. They can, as long as they match their two following teams, they can finish first. So they don't have to do anything extra special. They just have to maintain the pace delivered by both those teams. And it's becoming more and more clear. I know this comes from, because I'm in the room with a Leaf fan. I'm not trying to hide my face for anything or pretending I have a headache, because I don't have a headache. What I will say is this, and this is becoming abundantly clear to anyone who has followed the Leafs this season. It seems when the world is nearing the end, it takes a couple of games and you look back and go, what were we talking about again? And in this case, that road trip specifically, 3 games being played, it began in dire straits. To let a team like that overcome a lead and then win in a shootout, the season's over. That's it. The Leafs are done. Forget it. And then they go into a really tough arena and win a game in a way that the team that they're playing, that's their marquee, right? Like LA is a low-scoring, tough defense, physical, win 2-1. Wait a second. They didn't. The Leafs did. So this game here was really important.
Oh, for sure. And to have John Tavares playing the way that he is, this dude has completely rejuvenated himself. It's fantastic to see. He's got 9 goals and 5 assists in the past 10 games. He's taken 24 shots on net. He has 4 power play points. He's averaging 17 minutes and 46 seconds a night. For a guy that's supposedly over the hill and on his way out of the league because he's too slow and too clumsy and what have you. He's been having an absolutely fantastic tail end of the season here. His 2 goals against Los Angeles, his play, especially against the Ducks, was the less you notice him, the better that he's doing. So, the fact that he's managed to rejuvenate himself and play as well as he has in the past 10 games is definitely a sign of hopefully better things to come.
And he continues to bring the point home that 3 of the 4 are playing really well. And the 4th, being the one that needs to play the best of the 4, is starting to round into shape. And this game, I think, highlighted Matthews. I don't know whether the problem is physical or mental or anything, because we don't know really what the injury is that he had that required him to leave the country and to go to Europe, to Germany specifically, to go figure out how to move on with this condition that he had that we don't know what it is. But one thing's for sure, Aaron, he's leaning on the puck harder. He's moving quicker. And I haven't seen yet statistically the speed of his shots, but they look faster. In the opposite of what it's been the past since months, and they've measured his shots up until I'm going to say, because I don't know, I haven't heard confirmation, up until a couple of weeks ago, a week, maybe 10 days ago, his shots were a good 8-10 kilometers slower than they've been in the past. And you know what? I think 10 kilometers speed or mile, whatever it was, less makes a difference.
Oh, it definitely makes the shots easier to see. It doesn't necessarily make them easier to stop. I think something that people are missing is over the past 10 games, Matthews has had 6 goals and 6 assists for 12 points. Marner's had 2 goals, 9 assists for 11. Nylander's had 6 goals and 7 assists for 13. And Tavares is coming out on top with 9 goals and 5 assists. So his goal production isn't necessarily there, but he's still up there when it comes to points per game. Just because he's not as flashy as he was in his previous seasons doesn't necessarily mean that he's not doing as well.
Yeah. Well, and I'm not trying to suggest that what's missing is flashiness. In fact, for me, it's the opposite. It's his ability to take away the puck or to keep it. He up until this past week, 2 weeks, he hasn't been able to play keep away the way we're used to, and the way he's doing it now, and he hasn't played takeaway the way he has now. Like both his takeaway and keep away, as far as I'm concerned, is more of what I expect from a Matthews, who's a fairly big guy with a very long range. He has literally the tools to be an all-star. So, and when the brain starts working in good symmetry with the body, and the body allows the brain to do the stuff the brain wants to do, you end up with this kind of Matthews. And hopefully this is the kind of Matthews that Leaf fans are going to see, because at the end of the day, he doesn't wear the C for any reason other than he's the best player on this team, and he needs to be that at the end of each game consistently.
It's funny that you should mention consistency, because Matthews tied the game 1-1 on a goal that probably should have had a stoppage in play before it actually happened. According to a lot of the replays that I saw, the very tip of his stick made contact with the very edge of the puck in order for him to knock that down and keep it in the zone. Same kind of goal was overturned the very next night against Anaheim. It's, and again, I'm not bagging on the referees.
And that one looked better than Matt. Like Marner's looked a little more legal than Matthews.
And that's the interesting part of it all, right? Like, you're looking for a little more consistency here when it comes to that sort of thing. But unfortunately, when pucks are flying through the air and sticks are swinging, and Matthews is 6'3", but technically he's crouching, does that really make it above his shoulders when he's standing up? All that sort of fun stuff. You start working with a strike zone for NHL referees, and it gets to be more difficult.
Well, there is the difference in height between the two players. That firstly, that's got to be a given, right? So if you go by the shoulder, obviously Matthews' high stick is a little higher than that of Mitch Marner. And I noticed in the game they drew a couple of lines. I think it was a blue line and a yellow line that you saw, and that he touched the puck at the yellow line, and the blue line was I guess what they were determining was his shoulder height. With technology being what it is, Aaron, and they measure all the boards. There isn't a very big deviation in the height of the boards and the glass itself. They could put a couple of things in there like chips or stuff like that, like they've done with pucks in the past, and they could end the guesswork. But it's a technology that could be expensive, I guess. You know what I'm getting at, right? The possibility of determining for sure, like it's the robot ump. right? It's the same thing all over again. It's the positioning of the overhead camera. It's what you put inside the net so that you don't have opportunity for the puck to go in and leave so quick that you can't see or understand that it went in. But the one thing that you have to say, and we're stuck with, Aaron, and is the simple fact that the human factor of the referee making a decision is important. It is the most important thing that happens on the ice, because once the referee makes a decision, and this is fair, I think this is right. We should support the referee's decision. The league should support the referee's decision. It's hard to undo their decision, which we saw on 2 consecutive nights. We saw it handled differently, because that's one thing we can agree on. Both those calls were very similar. Both those calls looked like they were over the shoulder, but both those calls weren't called the same. And, and one goal had a lot to do with the game. The other, not so much, because it happened so early in the game. And there was lots of time to, if you will, undo the damage. So, the Leafs got lucky. Leaf fans, we complain about the league is against the Leafs. We talk about referees being against the Leafs. I think we saw evidence that, guess what? They get calls too.
Yeah, this whole hullabaloo and foofara about the league being biased in favor of Toronto because the NHL review offices are there and yada 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 is as far as I'm concerned, a bunch of malarkey. Because if the league really was biased, at least would have won a cup by now.
Oh, you just brought something to mind. The
Mm.
league head offices are in New York. Could that be the explanation why no Canadian teams won a championship since they moved it there?
I mean, it's a possibility.
Because conspiracies grow out of the most minute detail. But you know what? Again, officiating is objective, right? And it's supposed to be, but it can be subjective, which is what we've seen. There was some talk, another call that Leaf fans or people were upset about, was the Marner takedown, which looked like a shoulder pad to the head. It looked like it.
Yeah.
And the thing that people usually say that leads to a suspension is, did you see the way his head went? That was a headshot. And his head did whip. It was affected by that shoulder. There was no penalty, no suspension, no fine, nothing to talk about.
The initial point of contact wasn't the head. Just to be fair here, had the initial point and the primary point of contact been the head, then I could see that. But based on the minute dissections that people on social media have done to my benefit, I can say that it doesn't really look like that. It just looked like Marner got caught looking the wrong way, and that's why you got to keep your head in a swivel.
And the reason I use the word subjective, there's a reason for that. So it is what it is. Well, Aaron, I guess you could say that with what the Leafs have been doing lately, we've talked about them being on the plus side ahead of their 2 nearest rivals in their division. Every point matters, doesn't it?
100%. This is where you get down to, for lack of a better term, the short strokes. If you can continue to get points for ties, even if you don't win, that's still points. And with Tampa Bay and Florida both sitting 3 points back with 1 game in hand, with Ottawa sitting at 84 points, 10 points back with 1 game in hand, and Montreal a few more points back than that. Those teams, Ottawa, Montreal, they're still very much in the playoff mix at this point.
Oh, they're in the driver's seat.
Yeah.
They as I said, even more so actually than the Leafs. The Leafs can now control their destiny as far as where they finish from here on in these last less than 8 games. It's in their control. They are the masters of their own destiny now. They just have to match the opposition. The same is true for Montreal and Ottawa sitting in their playoff positions. Ottawa's in a much better position. Ottawa's pretty much clinched. They'd have to totally fall apart. Now, if this was the Ottawa of last year and years past, I wouldn't bet against it. But this is a different team. This is a team that's going to win their share of games, and that's really all they need to do to continue this move that they've started to the playoffs, and they're good for it. Montreal's a little less obvious because, in fact, while they are in a position to control their destiny, they have to control their destiny by winning at least as much as everybody behind them, and maybe even a point more, depending on how the outright wins work out, because there's a tiebreaker possibility depending on how things go towards the end of the season. And they're that close to the nearest opposition that it could come down to that. Like if it ended today, it would come down to that, except for the fact odd amount of games being played, in hand and stuff. But it's looking good for the Canadian teams here in the East, which at the beginning of this season, Aaron, I wouldn't have thought that there would be more Eastern Division teams in the playoffs than Western, Canadian teams.
Yeah, based on expectations and roster construction and the hopes exiting last season, you would have thought that Winnipeg, Edmonton, Vancouver, and Calgary would be the ones more likely to make it, just based on the makeup of the teams and the runs that they had. I've lost track of the number of times I've seen a team that didn't win the cup come back the next year to actually win it. So that at least bodes well for Edmonton if they can pull themselves out of the doldrums without McDavid and put a few more together. The issue that they're having in their division, though, is Vegas is 7-1-2 in their last 10 on a 6-game winning streak, and Los Angeles is 7-3-0. Whereas they've been languishing at 5-4-1 in their last 10, so that makes things a little bit more difficult. Winnipeg is 7-3-0 in their last 10 as well. They're on a 3-game win streak currently, 4 games before that. So, it's all there. They just need to put the capper on it and make sure that they get in. Vancouver and Calgary, that's a slightly different scenario. Calgary is currently sitting 7 points out of a wild card spot with 3 games in hand on St. Louis and 2 games in hand on Minnesota. It's still possible for them to make it. Vancouver's in tough. They've got 81 points to St. Louis's 87, and they only have 1 game in hand. They need a little bit of special luck at this point, I think, if they're going to try to make the playoffs.
They're the lowest scoring team, I think, in March.
And that's not going to help.
Their inability to score in the trades that they made early in the season were basically they traded 2 of their best scorers. That was predictable, right? I don't know, what's wrong with Vancouver, why they're having these problems. These problems are having with the locker room, which we know to be true because it's come out in many ways. It's come out through ownership, it's come out through coaching, it's come out through the general manager, and it's come out through the players. I don't know how you fix a problem like this, Aaron, especially I don't, because I'm not in the room. I don't know really what's going on. And do the people who have control over it, do they have the ability to sort it out? Well, guess what? If evidence is history says they can't sort it out. And this team's it's probably going to have to make some serious moves come the offseason because they're not going to make the playoffs. And they were one of 3 teams in the West that I thought was a lock to make the playoffs, right? Along with Edmonton and Winnipeg. I always thought Winnipeg and Edmonton were in. It was just a question of whether Calgary would follow them along with Vancouver. It didn't happen. Calgary was never considered. I think they've done better than people thought they were going to do. I'll just say that. They were a far better team this year than people thought they could be. So they're in a positive trend, right? The Calgary fans will be happy with the way their team has played if they honestly look at the opportunities that were in front of them at the beginning of the year. Again, Vancouver, a disappointment. Ottawa and Montreal, I mean, this year they look terrible. They look terrible at times this year, and they're in a good spot. I like where they are. And I like the chances of a Canadian team maybe going to the Stanley Cup final again. And if they do, I hope they win. It doesn't matter which team. It'd be great for Canada, especially this year. Come on, especially this year. It would be nice to see a Canadian team win the Stanley Cup and say, you know what? It belongs to us again, at least for this year.
I'm just not looking forward to two Canadian teams facing each other in the first round again. That's,
It looks like it's going to happen, Aaron.
oh yeah, more than likely.
On 2 counts, it looks like it's going to happen. But still, the bad news is one of them goes. The good news is one of them staying in the hunt.
True.
So, there's two ways to look at it. But still, losing a team is bad. I've said this before, and I'll continue to say it. I would love to see a series between Ottawa and Florida. It does mean that, that would be down the next round for that to happen. Now it's starting to look like, it's going to be interesting. I like Montreal as far as their ability to surprise and to play well. And the Montreal Canadiens have a history of winning in the playoffs. We've seen it, Aaron. We've seen it and not liked it.
Yes,
right.
Very much so.
So, it's a reality that one has to accept. Now, is there a preference for me it being any other team but Montreal? Yeah, only because Montreal won it last time. That's the only reason. No reason other than that. So it'll be great to see. Our biggest hope right now is the first overall best team in the league, and that's the Winnipeg Jets. They have it all. They're physical. They play playoff hockey. They've got a number one goaltender, and they've got great young players there that are towing their weight as well. And it's going to be a fun playoff. I really think that. Montreal has a guy, I don't know, we can talk about Suzuki, who led the Canadiens to their victory. He's been a really good leader, Aaron, and I'm not saying he came out of nowhere, but man, I didn't see him coming as a captain of the Montreal Canadiens when they made him, but they seem to have made a really good choice. He has been there for this team.
All of the foundational blocks were there, for sure. He's good defensively. He's good at moving the puck up. He can score when it really counts. And the one thing that we missed, obviously, as outsiders looking in here, is how he is in the locker room, and that apparently doesn't seem to be an issue. He scored with 17:58 left in the third to put the Canadiens up 3-2. Juraj Slafkovsky has pulled himself out of the doldrums. Lane Hutson has been a very pleasant surprise.
Wow.
Laine has been a boon for them. He's really seen a rejuvenation and a resurgence in his career, having gone to Montreal from Columbus. Seth Jones and Sam Reinhart responded for the Panthers. That's as expected. Bobrovsky did not have a good game. He only had 18 saves for the Panthers on 22 shots. Florida was 5-5-0 in its last 10. Montreal's 4-3-3 over the last 10. But Hudson had 3 assists for Montreal. It's his 14th multi-assist game of 2024-2025, tying Larry Murphy for second most in the season by a rookie defenseman in NHL history, trailing only Chris Chelios, who had 16 in 1984-85. So you look at the depth of their roster, you look at the performance they're getting out of the younger players. This is a team that appears to be peaking at just about the right time in the season to make sure that they get into the playoffs.
Yeah, that's something, as a person who follows the Maple Leafs, that the Maple Leafs, what they might not say it, but I can say it for them. They look enviously over to Montreal and their ability to create offense from the back end and the front end. They've got a really good balance because of Hudson and his scoring prowess. They've got the threat can come from the front or the back. Take your pick. And that balance, I think, is the biggest thing that is, and goaltending, which to me hasn't been consistently good, but sketchy at times, but most times. So they've got a pretty good team going that way. You want to talk about leadership? There's not been a better leader than Sidney Crosby in the National Hockey League over the past 20 years. He led his team by scoring an overtime goal and taking down Ottawa, who are sitting pretty, but I'm sure they want to continue winning, but they didn't do it on this night against Pittsburgh.
No, and you know what? Crosby has 8 goals and 7 assists in a 10-game point streak at this point. He also extended a 13-game home point streak with that overtime goal. Ridley Grieg was called for a hooking with 3 seconds remaining in the third period, giving Pittsburgh that overtime power play. Tristan Jarry, who many people thought would have been run out of Pittsburgh on a rail, stopped 31 shots for his 20th career shutout and his first of this season. He spent time in the AHL with Wilkes-Barre Scranton this season. allowed 11 goals in his last 3 games, was not looking good. Evgeny Malkin missed his 3rd straight game for Pittsburgh with an undisclosed upper body injury, and Ville Koivunen made his NHL debut. So, after trading posts, Ottawa outshot Pittsburgh 27-19. Jari absolutely stood on his head. But at the end of the day, Ottawa still holds the top wildcard spot in the Eastern Conference, whereas the Penguins, while they did manage to snap a 3-game losing streak, have not been doing well. They got outscored 13-4 in their 2 previous games. So it's one of those things where it might be a little too late, but it hasn't really played spoiler at this point for Ottawa.
Yeah, Ottawa can afford to lose. In this case, Perfetti added a goal to help the Jets win 3-1 over a team that cannot afford another loss, and that's the Vancouver Canucks. We talked about them just a little earlier.
Yeah, he got it past Eric Forbort in a move that you see countless times in the House League that really shouldn't happen in the NHL. He went between Forbort's legs. Forbort got caught puck watching instead of taking the body, and then he wristed it past Thatcher Demko. It's one of those things where you got to be a little bit better than you have been. And I'm not sure if this is an issue that the Canucks are going to be able to address in the offseason, but I certainly hope so. Perfetti is a really, really skilled player. He'd been lurking in the weeds in the AHL for a while before they finally brought him up, and he's proved value for dollar. One of the biggest and best surprises.
Absolutely. When he was drafted, he was thought to be a prospective star, and he is slowly but surely working to that end. A star, not only in his own right, a star, period. Draisaitl gets his 2nd goal of the night, 1 in overtime. And Aaron, if I look in a dictionary under snapshot, do I see a picture of Draisaitl?
Probably. That dude's snapshot is absolutely unbelievable. God.
Isn't it? The power that he gets off with that, 10 to 12 inches of recoil. That's all he draws back. 10 to 12 inches.
Yeah, and you know what? And that's after missing the last 4 games with a lower body injury. He's now got 63 points in 48 career games against the Flames. Kadri actually got his 700th career NHL point and extended his point scoring streak to 6 games as well when he assisted on Sharon Govic's opening goal 4.5 minutes into the game. But unfortunately, his goal scoring streak has ended at 5 games. So, when the Oilers tied the score with 2-2 with 3:12 remaining in the third, this is one of those things where it's like, okay, how long is it going to take into the overtime before this is over? Because it's going to Draisaitl to pull the trigger.
Well, he just, I tell you, Aaron, I don't know of going back to the Edmonton Oilers days of a guy like Curry and Naslund and oh my goodness, I forgot Yager. This guy fits in that class. This guy's one of the best European players ever to play in the National Hockey League, in my opinion.
Oh, most assuredly. And, I don't think he gets the credit that he's due.
Well, I think he should. And this is the same problem that Curry had. He played on the same team as Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of shadow casting that happens. And in this case, though, we've seen over the past few years in the playoffs and the regular season when the gifted one, McDavid, is not playing, this guy does put the team on his back. He's more than capable of leading the Edmonton Oilers to the promised land on his own. He's capable of it. That doesn't mean that, McDavid is not a useful player to the team. Of course he is. But it's just how great Draisaitl plays, and we don't appreciate it because the dazzling plays that McDavid makes that are attention grabbing, and it can't be helped because it's not just the goals and the assists that McDavid gets. It's how flashy and wonderful they are. It covers the basic shooting skill of this guy, Draisaitl. He makes it look too freaking simple.
No, and it all comes down to mechanics, and I think Draisaitl has refined his shot to just the perfect degree.
Totally admirable shot. Aaron, real quick, the Blue Jays. 2-2. This is another one of those cases like the Leafs. The opening game of the series, they lose 12-2. The sky is falling, right? Well, the series ends. It's 2-2. It's a soft against a team that has its way with the Blue Jays more often than not, them being Baltimore. Interesting series for a first series.
Oh, most definitely. I mean, you had a whole bunch of different storylines coming out of that. One of those, most notably, was Max Scherzer's third inning injury. Again, right thumb inflammation. This is something that's held him out of the lineup since 2023. Had issues with it in 2024. Now he's on the IL, $14.5 million. It's one of those. You knew it was an issue before. It wasn't going to magically clear itself up. The good news is that Bassett, who came in, it did a fantastic job cleaning up for it. So
he did. Really good pitcher.
Yep. And at the end of the day, we're sort of sawed off on this thing, which is not a bad place to be in. But yeah, and the other thing is they're saying that he also developed soreness in his right lat muscle. That injury developed because of the thumb, as he had to alter his delivery to compensate.
Well, yeah, I guess it's fair to say no thumbs up here. Thumb down.
Solid down on that one.
Thumb bad. Thanks for doing this, Aaron.
Not a problem, Frank. We'll see you Wednesday.
Aaron William Freeland. I'm Candid Frank Stanisci. You can check out the show and the past shows at Candid Frank Stanisci, 10:30 on YouTube. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you again we'll be back again on Wednesday. We'll try and do this. We'll try to do it better than we did today.